It is a glorious day. How do you know it's a glorious day? Because Books of the Week is now spilling out of your computer, onto your lap, into your living room, all over your floor. And this is us. This is CPL Radio in Cedarburg, Wisconsin. I'm Jeff. Across from me is the Boston branch of CPL Radio. I bet you didn't know you were the Boston branch. And it's Steve Donahue, book critic at large. Hi.
Hello, everybody. I'm a little bit confused by the show right out of the starting gate. We had to cancel last week's show because somebody spilled a Quick Trip Slurpee on a piece of audio equipment. So I resoundingly fired my producer. I went to the Wisconsin Bureau of Employment. They assured me that I was getting a very nice young woman named Lori.
Yes.
But you, not only are you not a nice young woman named Lori, but also you're not the Employment Bureau's backup choice, somebody named Clownburger. You're not either of those.
Actually, this guy showed up this morning because he said, I'm here to do the show. Bill was wondering if maybe you had a spot for him.
Is there any chance that we could keep the chili dogs away from the audio just long enough to produce a show?
When you order 12, Steve, no.
I can't believe that all the people out there watching this show are bigger fans of you than they are of me. What is wrong with this country?
Well, you know, I mean, it must have something to do with the spread that I serve here. Jello molds, fondue, or
I'm
fondant.
just grateful that there's nothing wrong with this country that J.D. Vance can't solve.
Hey, after last night, Coach Waltz is going to mop the floor with him. That was fun. Anyway, so beyond all that, we do talk about books on this show, if you can believe that.
Right. So when you say that was fun, what you should say is that was the fun, and it's all downhill from here.
Oh, man, you know.
That was your bit of fun, right?
That's all we get. I hope you had a good time, America.
Although I think we already know they didn't. I don't know why they keep coming back.
We're here to mop the floor with you, as our coach would say. And Steve, by way of introduction, if you are new to the show, sorry. What did you possibly if you're new to the show, your internet's broken, call Spectrum now.
Your moral choices. Certainly.
So yes, we are tolerated. What we like to do is talk books. Steve is a professional book critic by day and actually by night too. So we defer to him for his opinions and wisdom and guidance and beautiful dog Frida, who is making and now I have to pay him more. That's great. Every time she comes on, the check gets bigger. His agent doesn't scare me. Hers does. So on this show, we like to go nonfiction, and then we move over to the fiction section, and then we do something called the wild card, which gets wilder by the week. And this will be no different. So, Steve, in your learned, educated way, let's talk about the nonfiction section.
And we should tell our viewers that this time around, both fiction and nonfiction were governed by the library.
Very much so. Yes. Right? Yes. Big titles. These are checkouts and holds galore. And we are going to unpack why here. So, Steve, why?
Well, our nonfiction, I for one half of our program, I actually don't have a why, or I have a why, but it's extremely damning.
Okay.
Because usually when the why is bad, I end up just wagging my finger at your paper.
So does she.
Our first one is The Anxious Generation, which I told you tell me that it is popular at the library.
I can't seem to find it anywhere. I know we have it.
By Jonathan Haidt, who says that his name is not pronounced that way. But let's put it this way, Johnny boy. If you produce for me a bibliography, a works cited section to any new book of yours, and I drill down on one contention of yours to the footnote that you provide, And that footnote supports the point you say it makes. If you do that even once, I'll pronounce your name the way you want.
Oh boy,
you're Johnny Hate. Okay.
His punk rock band days behind, leaving him behind.
An old producer of mine, I go through them when they displease me.
Oh.
An old producer of mine a long time ago used to quip, "Kid, if your show's attracting Nazis, the problem's not with the Nazis."
Oh dear, oh God.
Johnny Hate, if your inbox is suddenly full of invites to the intellectual dark web, ask not for whom the shill tolls, okay? It tolls for thee.
Oh boy. This is all off the cuff, folks. He didn't compose any of this prior to the show, I promise you.
Now, I don't deal with a script, because if I scripted this, there's a piece of wall decoration I'd write right out of the show.
It ties the room together, as they say, right?
But in the anxious generation, Johnny Hate has two claims. One, that kids these days are over-parented. The parents are too controlling, with too many tentacles reaching into their lives. And two, that kids these days are allowed too much access to screens and social media. What's that you say? Those two contradict each other?
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So that's sentence number one of the preface of the book.
Oh, boy.
Bedrock contradiction.
In my own personal studies with 5 children, is their main bone of contention with me is aren't my tentacles? It's the fact that I exist. So, I mean, there's that.
I mean, that might be interesting from a parenting angle, but when you say that, not only is your guest nodding, but all of our viewers are nodding at the same time. So you might have struck a deeper stratum there than I thought.
Sore necks across America.
Needless to say, Johnny Hate is wrong on both those contentions, and nothing in his book supports them. Even though he has the thick, bristly John Larroquette white hair, and he's a great get for a talk show or an IDW podcast. So he's got all that down pat. I might point out that the great get for the podcasts and the dodgy research and the uncorroborated assertions and the very easy conclusions of books aimed at disaffected Ivy League parents puts him in league with a certain other charlatan we haven't dealt with yet, named Steven Pinker. We'll get to him eventually. He'll have a new book eventually. More views from my gated community. The two contentions of this book are wrong, each separately and together. Of course, they're wrong together because they contradict each other.
Right.
But they're also wrong separately. And all you have to do, you don't need to research your own book. All you need to do is drill down deep on the research that Hate provides himself.
Oh, geez. Okay. Wow. So I've got a son, if you can believe that, who is about as screen obsessed as anyone I've met. And yet his teachers all call him intelligent, well-adjusted. He's a nice guy, fun to talk to.
Nice
loves
guy,
his screens.
fun to talk to, empathetic, caring, is well-adjusted, and so are all the kids in this book. All of them. All these Damien Omen, hollow-eyed harbingers of a horrible future. They're all like that. And they're all strangers. Hate has never talked to anyone.
Oh, gee, okay.
I guarantee it. I doubt he talked to people below the age of 35 when he himself was 10. In addition to all the fraudulent, dumb, manipulated research, all the cherry-picked studies, he's also completely personally ignorant of his subject. And this book is popular at your library.
What is it's got to be. Let me get the chorus line for you there. Kick turn. There we go. It's got to just be the title and the subject matter, because you probably have very worried parents who are like, I need some artillery, and here's the book for me.
Right.
Are you fearful that they are going to get a more than fearful? They're getting a bunch of wrong-headed information and then apply it poorly? Is that what's going to come out of this book?
I worry about both overreactions. Either they're going to take Hate at his word and get alarmed and start either restricting or unrestricting. Let's keep that in mind. If you're in certain neighborhoods of Milwaukee or Des Moines or Chicago, then you can't just say, you know, I just finished this book and I really think that little Tristan and Isolde, I should just say goodbye to him in the morning, go out and play, run and chase things as far as you want, and come back for supper time like we did in the pre-electricity days. You do that to young Tristan and Isolde in a lot of neighborhoods in America, you'll never see them again.
You know, you can do that. You can do that parentally, but then you also have to get rid of electricity. If you want to recall those days, then that has to go too.
Once upon a time, Haight loves doing this. He's too young. I checked. He's too young to remember it himself. But once upon a time, yeah, parents in suburban communities kids had the day off on the weekends. They weren't at school. Parents would say, be back for supper time, and the kids would run along train tracks, and they would dodge in and out of traffic, and they would drink water from garden hoses and whatnot. They would play games with people they don't know, with children they've never met before. Never see an adult. All the way until supper time, they'd never see an adult.
Right.
And the adults, because there were no cell phones, had no idea where they were.
Right.
And yet we all turned out all right.
Oh, did we? Well, that's good news.
So many problems just with that illusion, even before you dig down into the cherry-picked research. There are so many problems with that.
Oh my.
But I'm worried that either parents will accept this swill just entirely and start taking its implied nostrums, or that they'll go in the other direction and they'll say, well, this seems obviously fraudulent to me, so I'm not going to pay any attention to it at all.
Right.
Which is also wrong, because screens are built to be addictive.
Right. Certainly.
Social media is built to be addictive and is also unbelievably corrosively cruel.
Yes. Yes.
It is incumbent on you as a parent to know about those things and to monitor what your kids are doing on them, not necessarily to control.
Yeah.
But that if you just dismiss that because you think some guy is overreacting or is chicken littling the whole thing, then you're, in other words, the point I'm trying to make about this book is that there's virtually no way it can be read beneficently.
Yeah. It is not a single bullet that, to use a grim simile, but it's not a single solution. They're looking for a package. That seems to be the case with this one and why it's so popular here. They're like, oh, here it is. I mean, they feel they're not at a library. They're at Walgreens. This is the pharmaceutical I needed.
The thing to realize about The Anxious Generation is that it is just the latest book in an unending list of books like this. It was the Me generation. Before that, it was the dropped out generation. It was the stoned generation. In Puritan New England, it was the Wicked generation. Parents have always wanted books to tell them about the weird, goggle-eyed, greasy-haired space aliens that their innocent little children have become. Parents have always wanted books to help explain that. I'm not denying that transformation happens, but I obviously, the only person in a position to explain or investigate that is you, the parent.
Absolutely.
For that has always been a mug's game. And Johnny Haight knows that. He has been raking in mountains of cash off this book.
You know, you and I both know what is making our current crop of teenagers, and probably all the ones before, more anxious than anything else. Their parents. Their parents make them very anxious.
Well, and also their parents' handiwork.
Right.
The kids these days are looking around and seeing, okay, I'm never going to be able to afford a house. I can't afford even rudimentary health care in the most wealthy nation in the history of the world. And also, all of Norway is on fire. And there are no ice caps anymore on a world that absolutely depends on them. And 54% of the world's entire wealth is in the hands of 14 middle-aged men.
Yes.
All of whom are bald. And compensate big time.
Working on it.
All of them are either bald or compensate or losing hair, and they're compensating big time by buying rainforests.
Right. Yeah.
The kids these days look at all of that, but any parent who thinks that the right approach to addressing any of that is to read a book instead of sitting down and talking with your kids. When's the last time you did that? When's the last time you borrowed this book? When's the last time they did that?
Oh, my kids give me the ick.
Well, believe me, take it from me. Every once in a while, duty requires that you sit down and talk with someone who gives you the ick.
All true. All true.
Lori
Yep.
giving me the ick.
This guy, though, tons of ick. Well, that's a book that will or will not. Sounds like mostly could give you the ick, as we say. That's our new.
That it's flying off the shelf. Why are patrons talking to you about it? Are they all fooled by it?
No, they're very insular about this one. They bring it back and they look perplexed, confounded, confused. I don't think, and to your criticism, I don't think they are getting out of it what they're looking for.
No. Okay. All right. You patrons, if you're taking this book out of the library because you've heard a lot about it, and then you bring it back and you have a perplexed look on your face, allow me to reassure you, the perplexity you're feeling is because you just read a book that you're 100% sure is complete sheep dip, but you don't want to think that because you've seen it praised in the New York Times. Always trust your sheep dip meter. And never trust the New York Times. Never trust the mainstream media. Never do that. Okay? Always trust your own instincts. Or in the case of the Washington Post, your own eyes and ears, since the Washington Post clarified, fact-checked yesterday that Donald Trump did not, in fact, say that there were good people on both sides of the Nazi rally in Charlottesville.
Yeah.
He said that he said, and we all watched and listened to him say and saw it on repeat for 10 years, that there were very fine people on both sides. So the Nazis and the non-Nazis. And the Washington Post has just fact-checked that he didn't say that.
Oh, boy.
Your memory and your eyes and your ears have now been fact-checked.
Interesting. I wonder.
This book, that's exactly what you're thinking. You're reading it.
Yeah.
Thinking, I don't think this guy has any idea what he's talking about. Allow me to tell you, he doesn't have any idea what he's talking about. If your teenagers are confusing you, sit down and talk with them.
Your worst fears about this book have just been confirmed by a book critic in Boston. So there we go. Now available.
I mean it. Sit down and talk with them. Don't talk at them.
At them. Right.
Sit down and talk with them.
Yeah.
What is it that interests you? Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Why does it interest you? No judgment. Just why does it interest you? Not, oh, that's strange.
No judgment is very hard for this bunch. No judgment is really hard. Yeah.
Who do you listen to? What do you worry about?
Yeah.
By the time your kid is 17 or 18, most of your parenting stuff is over.
It is.
You don't start transferring that to friendship. It's your own fault. Nobody.
Right. And they crave that. People always think, oh, my teenager's distant, I can't get through to them. That is probably reversed. You can't get through to them. They probably can't get through to you. That might be what's going on. And also, these advice.
If you're talking to one of your teenagers, try not to have a big sign on the wall with the name of a different teenager. That would be great.
He's not a teenager. He's a toddler. Let's get it right. You're welcome, Jack. Well, that is our nonfiction book of the week. I don't know what I mean. It's not going to alter anyone's passion for this thing. They want it now, so they want more copies. Why don't we have enough copies? Get more copies.
They wanted it until they heard what I had to say.
Well, we'll see. Once this hits the ground running, I hope to find it, in the gutter, upside down with a wet cover. All right, let's do a fiction title and save ourselves and save the show. What is this wacky book that I knew nothing about? Suddenly exploded onto the scene, and I had to buy. Speaking of multiple copies, I had to spend way too much money on this.
Really?
Book. Yeah,
that's fascinating. Now, this is God of the Woods by Liz Moore. It's by far her most popular book.
Whew.
And I think part of the reason why you probably had to deal with a surge of interest is because it's been picked by a lot of high-profile book clubs and celebrity recommenders. A lot of celebrities have liked this thing.
The Jenna or
and Jimmy Fallon,
and Jimmy.
Okay, they've all liked this thing.
Yeah,
said how much they enjoyed it, and that might have, as a professional book critic and a book section editor of a newspaper, I hate remembering that most people get their book recommendations from celebrities. I hate remembering that. I know that it's true.
I'm working on you, man. I'm doing everything I can here. I'm trying.
Getting your book recommendations from people who read books. Jimmy Fallon does not read.
No.
Okay. The Reese Witherspoon does not read. They do not ever lay down on their Architectural Digest artisanal couch next to the pool and read. They don't do it. They don't do it at all. They have terrified assistants. That's all they have. I've only got one terrified.
Being one myself, I would like to say it's not a bad life.
But this is this. Okay, at heart, this is the story of a posh resort and a school in the Adirondacks. Very scenic location.
Certainly.
At that school, there's a family that runs the whole thing. And at that school one year, one member of that family goes missing and is never seen again. And then years later, a quarter of a century later, a different member of the same family also goes missing.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Right. But in God of the Woods, that is the linear storyline. But in God of the Woods, Liz Moore takes that and she takes that timeline and tears it up into squares and then throws them in the air.
Okay.
So the book is you picking at whatever square it is. You don't get the book in chronological order. You don't know who's who for a long time. You don't know who's who. And you have to sort of piece the whole thing together. And as usual with books that have fractured timelines, there are some payoffs that slowly build and wait to the end. Because Liz Moore is completely in control of this book.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
So when she's leaving stuff out of the narrative, she knows perfectly well that you're noticing that there are details you're not getting. And the more it moves on, in the present tense, in the past tense, side characters, the more you're wondering about some of those things.
Okay.
And she knows to hold them back. She knows to wait. It's carefully orchestrated.
It's a very interactive book. That's why people are really must be enjoying it, because you are forced to be invested. So that's cool.
That would be my question for you. The cynical Steve would say that people are not enjoying this because they're not reading it. They're just borrowing it because celebrities like it.
Right. Right.
But the non-cynical Steve wants to know, are they talking about it?
Not as much yet. It's actually a really long book, so people are trying to it's a chunker or a quasi chunker.
Yeah.
So I haven't got.
I should point that out as a critic. It's longer than it should be.
Oh, okay. Okay. Very good. And as such, they haven't even returned it yet. It just kind of dropped, as they say, about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So the wall of noise is coming, and we'll see if word of mouth gets out, because that's big around here too. It's not just Reese and Jenna's word of mouth that goes around here. If Tessie Schimmelstone down the corner, down the block likes it, or doesn't like it, that's going to have a big bearing on Cedarburg reading habits too. So
you said that the book arrived 3 or 4 weeks ago and you haven't got any response on it yet. Why not?
They're still reading it. These people have. Oh, Steve. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, so
I've read 141 books in the last 4 weeks.
Let me explain to you. There are pies to be baked and mahjong clubs to go to. So between all of that nonsense is reading, So
probably a lot of your patrons also wear pants.
Just the ones I don't talk to.
They're a waste of time, which is why I do without. Here, let me show you.
Hello, there you go. Cutting to a commercial here. We have, the new fashions are in this year. We're very excited.
Oh, my. I remember not only that man look from the 70s, I also remember that particular model.
Oh boy. We have one thing to say to you, sir.
I believe the exact dialogue we had was, well, dude, I'm not gay. Well, that'll work as an opening negotiation.
Nobody's perfect. So there we are. So back to God of the Thing.
And he'll be wearing that outfit in hell.
Some would say he's already there. So this here God of the Woods book, I'm hearing kind of a recommendation, but a hesitant one. Is that accurate?
Well, I think it's fascinating that you call it interactive. That is a very good word for it. You have to be paying attention. You are definitely assembling a puzzle as you go in the book. My yardstick for whether or not that kind of narrative gimmick, because that's what it is.
Absolutely, yeah.
My yardstick for whether or not that is successful is whether or not the book would be gripping without it.
Oh, yeah.
My opening description of the narrative flow of events, would God of the Woods be as interesting, as involving, if Liz Moore just written that narrative thing?
Sure.
And you might say that's unfair because thrillers or suspense novels almost never do that. They almost never do it completely. There's always baggage that is affecting the present day tense. But I don't know. Actually, to take it back to my illustration, you take a picture, you tear it into 1,000 pieces and throw the pieces up in the air. Well, some of the pieces that you pick up off the floor are going to be blank.
Yeah.
And others of them are going to be boring. They might not be blank, but they won't be interesting. It's only once in a while that you get one that has an eye.
Right.
Well, that's what's happening with this book. There are plenty of fragments, and the fragments form plot lines that aren't. It's like I said, it doesn't need to be as long as it is.
It seems that some of readers, certainly of thrillers, want to be part of the investigation. I think maybe in that. Kind of maybe what's going on here.
Bamboozle. I've read 141 books in the last How can they not be done with it yet?
Right. And the gimmick you're talking about, I was more patient and maybe even a fan of that in my younger days. I am finding as I'm getting older, I'm seeing through these gimmicks, and if it's that, I would tire of that relatively quickly.
For me, the acid test is if you remove the gimmick, it's still a good book.
Yeah.
It's like a go-to example of mine. If you use a go-to example of mine, let's say Silence of the Lambs, or Red Dragon. Let's say Red Dragon by Thomas Harris.
Absolutely.
Two dead families when that book starts. It's only when the FBI decides to bring in their top investigator of serial killers that the novel actually starts. So you ask yourself, okay, given the way this author writes, would I be interested in the book if we had taken it right from the beginning, and the chief investigator comes in at the midpoint after those two families? So instead we get it completely linearly, and you absolutely would. I don't think that's true with God of the Woods. I think if it weren't jumbled, it would be boring.
Yeah.
But maybe your readers will think different. Maybe your people will think different. This thing has certainly had the kind of extracurricular boost to its popularity that authors can only dream of.
Yeah.
This has fundamentally changed Liz Moore's career. The next book that she pitches, whether anybody notices it, any celebrity notices it or not, it'll be much higher profile.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not familiar with her work. Has she done this type of thing before?
No, this is by far her most ambitious book. Okay. And it's not bad. I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm saying that it's sort of saved by its gimmick. The gimmick is so well done. The gimmick is so perfectly controlled that I don't think anybody will mind. I didn't mind.
I would think it'd be maddening to write a book like that. I mean, you have to turn your living room with all the yarn, thumbtacks in the wall.
I've known all sorts of authors who wrote complicated plots like this. Most of them use boards, corkboards, now whiteboards. The scariest author of this type of book that I ever knew routinely and happily told me that he didn't need any of those aids. He just kept it all in his head. And I thought, oh my God, I don't want to be in that head at all.
Don't have that one over for wine and calzones, okay? Just
oddly enough, he wore that uniform.
Oh, the man onesie, yes.
I don't know if they're connected.
Oh my. Well, I'm sure it is connected, actually. So, God of the Woods, Liz Moore, sort of available at your local public library. I'll get you on the list, and I'll see you at Christmas.
Wow, that is fascinating to me.
It's a big list. It's a big list on that one.
So okay. Does this happen online, or do patrons come into your desk and say, "Do you have this book?"
We have a 3-tiered process, Steve. You can come and see us in person, which we love. You can call us on the phone, or you can do it online yourself. And I would say It's half and half in this town. There are people who I've had prior librarians say, I know you're always coming in or calling. Would you like me to show you how to place the hold online? And they'll say, no.
I wouldn't ask. I wouldn't offer. If I were there, I would want everybody to come in and talk to me.
I actually prefer it myself. I do. Because if you do it enough, next thing you know, someone's like, I made a banana bread. Would you be...
Someday, if those Patreon dollars roll in, someday we will do a special event, ticket holder only live event in Cedarburg.
I think so.
My producer, me, and Frida.
Oh my gosh, this is huge. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. They'll do this into a commercial, the little bridge to the next segment. Here it is right here. Hello, this is Liberty speaking. Billions of dollars are needed and needed now. That's right. We need
Imagine us on stage at the library.
Oh, that would be wonderful. We have something called the Cedarburg PAC, the Performing Arts Center, and I think we need to grace that stage. So we have a Patreon, is www.patreon.com/books of the week. What could be easier? And a few little nickels and dimes, and next thing you know, Steve's in Cedarburg with Frida. This is how these things happen.
Although, considering all the shows we've done, I'm not sure that I would survive being friends of the public library. I've been vilifying them in front of hundreds of people for a long time.
You're the guy who said I knew Stalin? Oh my. Well, let's get wilder and wilder here on the show. We like to call this the wild card segment, where I reveal, how's that for an R roll, the cover of a book from our shelves, and Steve either recoils in disgust and horror or recoils in disgust and horror. So here we are. This is interesting. This is actually, we were going to call this the Donahue, the Messerman story, but instead we're going to call it a memoir of open marriage. More. Because that side of my wall certainly intimates a open marriage. Have you had a chance to look at Molly Roden Winters' More?
I have not.
I
have not.
There aren't any pictures.
I know a little bit about the author, and I know a lot about the concept, which does not work.
I can't imagine this going well.
It does not work. You're talking not about what authors of this type of book always say, that you're talking about 2,000 years of human culture. You're not. You're talking about several million years of primate evolution. The idea does not work.
No. Not work.
I
noticed on the author flap, Molly lives in Evanston, Illinois, close to here. And with her, I'm sorry, she's in Brooklyn, actually. And she lives with her husband, singular, and 2 sons. Well, that's not, I thought she'd maybe mention, she lives with her husband and 2 or 3 other interlopers or something in her author bio. But there we go. Open marriage. Here at the Cedarburg Public Library, I know some people who would love to talk to me about us having this book, but never mind. Anyway, moving on, we have a book that I'm wildly curious about because I love the cover. And it is by Derek B. Miller. It's The Curse of Pietro Houdini. Have we talked about this on the show already? I couldn't remember. I didn't think so. Are you familiar?
No, not at all.
It is the Dagger Award-winning author of Norwegian by Night comes a vivid, thrilling, and moving World War II tale where enemies become heroes, allies become villains, and a child learns what it means to become an adult. And this is apparently set in the Italian theater. 14-year-old Massimo is all alone, newly orphaned and fleeing from Rome after surviving the American bombing raid that killed his parents. Massimo is attacked by thugs and finds himself bloodied at the base of a hilltop with a Benedictine abbey. And then there's in the shadow is an eccentric man named Pietro Houdini, a self-proclaimed master artist and confidant of the Vatican who rescues Massimo. This is a beast. What do you think? Has it rocketed up to your
It's rather overcooked, doesn't it?
It does. New York Times.
Those things ever happened to me during World War II. Not all of them at once.
You'd be a totally different person now if that was the case. Kirkus said Miller is a splendid storyteller. The novel works equally well as wartime tale, heist thriller, coming of age story, and sweeping history and art lesson. I can't even lift this book. There's a lot going on, but we have it. The Curse of Pietro Houdini, Derek B. Miller.
Oh, Steve's not doing well.
That's all right. I kind of like to, as I say, stump the chump. So how about this one?
Steve's doing so poorly, he's referring to himself in the third person.
Yes. Whereas traditionally he has more of an he's more of an omniscient narrator of his life. This one has a
things.
You
Murder would have been sweeter.
Well, you will object fundamentally to the cover of this book with the feline on it, but this is the Kamigawa Food Detectives from Hisashi Kashiwai, and it looks charming.
I've tried this author so many times.
Really? Skinny?
Yes, in every possible meaning. This picture a bowl of slightly steamed noodles, no seasoning, no broth, no nothing, just a bowl of slightly steamed noodles. You pick them up on your chopsticks, you slurp them down, and then you're done.
It's just eating insulation.
No impression going in. There was no impression going down. There was no impression inside. None. Nothing. Just nothing. And in an hour, you're hungry.
Oh boy. Oh dear. Oh dear.
I know that it's not the normal reaction to this author, because this author is popular in 2 different countries. So maybe it's me, but this is what I refer to as Japanese zombie fiction. There's no affect whatsoever. There's nothing at stake. No one has any reactions. Everyone just sort of sways back and forth, like at a Wilco concert.
So you're just sort of there.
You're just sort of there. Yeah. It just sort of shows up. It has no affect at all. And then it just sort of leaves.
Is there a narrative? I don't want to say a narrative thrust. Is there a narrative plot? Is there forward? Is there anything?
Not really. The main character sometimes feels a little depressed at night.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
I'm only a little depressed.
All right. But there's probably a stellar denouement.
The whole thing. It's denouement right from the beginning. I don't understand the appeal of almost all the translated Japanese fiction that is a hit in the Japanese book market. I don't understand the appeal of almost all of it.
Huh.
There's one example that you probably have it at the library, or you maybe have it on order, about Tokyo at night. All the people who come out at night in Tokyo. And I'm reading it and I'm thinking, okay, well, you're just swaying back and forth. This is more Japanese zombie fiction. Surely nothing will happen in this book. And if something did, it would stick out like a sore thumb. And then at the 2/3 mark, in any other book I would call the climax, there's an actual earthquake.
Oh.
And it's boring.
Speaking of swaying back and forth.
There's an earthquake. I thought about maybe being alarmed. Then I looked at my phone.
Wow. I wonder what itch.
No, it's not the lack of incident. It's the way the things are written, because an actual earthquake happens.
The spoon fell off the counter.
I thought about picking it up, but then I just looked at my phone.
There's some itch is being scratched by this stuff. Is it maybe because people's lives are so complicated? They've complicated themselves.
You might have put your finger right on it. It might be that that the world is now so overwhelming that maybe people just want nothing to happen in their fiction. If that's true, then we have found yet another way in which this program is not helping. There's so many ways in which this program does not help.
No. That's what's great about this show. It really doesn't help at all. The show isn't the Band-Aid. The show is what's under the Band-Aid. Well, since we had a big book that really just kind of lulled both of us into this kind of stupor, let me wake up our audience. I got a big orange book here, Steve, called American Gun, the true story of the AR-15. Cameron McWhirter and Zusha Ellenson. What do we have to say about this?
You should read it. If you're an American, you should read it. Do you know why? My producer, do you know why, if you're American, you should read that book? Do you have any idea why?
Because we all
there's a 1 in 5 chance of dying by this.
Yes.
Why you should read this book. Because there's a 1 in 5 chance that when you walk out your front door, you're going to die because of somebody's using this thing.
Yeah.
Or there's a 1 in 5 chance that you're going to be home swaying back and forth eating your noodles when you get an alert saying that your kid and 30 other kids have died because of this weapon.
Yeah. Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
school. So you're not
Yes.
going to pick up your kid and grouse about the shape of her room at 2. You're going to pick up her body, which has to be identified with genetics, and
Ugh.
then cut a casket.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
because of this thing. And these authors do not condemn it categorically. And they should. They absolutely should.
This is more of a forensic breakdown.
Categorically is because
Yeah.
they're looking at their sales.
Yeah. So it's like, is it a history of or a forensic breakdown of what?
It's a history of, a forensic
Okay.
breakdown of, and most especially a look at why this thing is now everywhere. It's a weapon of war.
Yeah. Yes.
There's absolutely no legitimate use for it for a civilian. You can't use it to hunt.
Right.
You can't use it to protect yourself. You can't use it to protect your home.
Yeah.
You can't use it for anything except to kill other humans at a distance on a battlefield.
It's a murder machine.
And yet, where you, I don't want to get too polemical here, but where you are right now and where I am right now, you and I have no public criminal records. we have no criminal associates, and we don't have a whole lot of money. And you and I could each walk out of the room where we are and get a fully loaded AR-15 in about an hour.
Yeah, that's accurate. Yeah.
We don't live in crime-infested areas.
No.
Not connected with crime worlds. We could both do that in about an hour. It should be completely illegal under any circumstances to have this thing as an American citizen for any reason at all. Not 1 hour, but 1,000 hours should not be enough to get you one.
Right. Well, my question, of course, with not so much the book, but the device itself, is that if this is okay, we're deeming this legally and whatever, culturally okay, why can't I have a nuke?
It is not legally okay. All the legislation in all of the states that grows out of protecting this thing stems from the Second Amendment, which gives you the right to own a firearm as a member of a well-regulated state militia.
Militia, right? Exactly.
A member of a well-regulated state militia? No. Is anybody who owns one of these things? No. Would anybody who owns one of these things know where to find the headquarters of their local state militia? No. Are there state militias anymore? No. No. This Second Amendment does not guarantee you a right to own a gun.
And yet it's been perverted. It's been perverted as such.
To own a gun. Let's underscore that. You do not have a legal right to own a gun.
and yet that amendment you cite has been perverted as such by very loud and sadly influential people.
And a very large amount of secondary legislation has grown up around it now. So that if you didn't cite the Second Amendment, you could cite something else.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
As a result, it's not just a gun. I might maybe be willing to say that there is foreshadowed in the protection of the right to happiness, to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, maybe implicit in there is the right to self-defense. And that maybe that means you might have the right to own a handgun.
Right.
Heavily licensed, enormously expensive, and a huge background check.
Yeah.
So that if, for instance, 5 minutes on a background check shows that you violently killed all of your relatives when you were a teenager, you don't get one.
Right.
Now, not ever. You don't get one ever.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe I might be willing to say that, but this is not that.
No.
This can fire hundreds and hundreds of rounds at a rapid clip. It is meant to kill enemy combatants on a battlefield. No one has the right to own it. No one does.
Right. I mean, if you have one of these things and you can then proclaim and should proclaim and maybe be forced to proclaim, I want everyone in this room to die at some point. Like, I have the power to do that.
And yet, so many states, I haven't checked Wisconsin, but so many states not only allow civilians to have these things, but allow them to carry them.
Yes. Yeah.
In public. In Texas, you will go to the local Tasty Freeze, and a 20-year-old will have one of these strapped on his back. Yeah. And yes, you are completely right. The implication of what he's doing there is I could kill any of you.
Yeah.
So if I cut you off in the parking lot, if I'm a jerk to your kid in line at the salad bar, you better keep your mouth shut.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I could kill everyone in this room.
Well, this isn't going to work. This just isn't going to work. I'm sorry. That's the strongest Wisconsin reaction, Midwestern reaction I could give you to. No, I'm sorry. No, this isn't going to work.
The book should be an outright fiery condemnation, and it's not.
Yeah,
should be. It should be, because people we all know are dying as a result of these things.
Yeah. I would say though, let's let's try to dial it back to what we do here. Was it a compelling read? Did it, were the chapters beyond its lack of condemnation? If you're looking for the true story of the AR-15, are you going to get it?
In this particular instance, you won't often hear me say this. In this particular instance, not only can I not divorce the subject from the execution, but no one should. In this particular instance, that is the case. I don't know about our viewers, but I, for instance, have absolutely no interest in reading a non-judgmental account of Jim Crow.
Sure. Yeah, I switched.
Not interested in reading a non-judgmental account of that.
Right. It'd be like writing a book on Charles Manson, saying he was this guy, he did these things, right. His family was.
There are authors who do that. There are authors who think that's a worthwhile endeavor.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah,
it isn't. We live in a moral universe. So, yes, the technical answer to the question that you asked is yes. You will get all of that information, and you'll get it conveyed readably. And to my mind, that increases the sins of it.
Sure, absolutely. That's interesting. It's an interesting thing you just said. We live in a moral universe, and yet you don't hear our political people ever. That would be an argument ender for most political discussions and debates. Is anyone who's going round and round with minutia? You could just say, yeah, but we live in a moral universe. Where do you go from there?
Takes a fairly sizable haymaker to this show as well. Now that I think about it.
Quick, let's bring him out. Once again, Bill Bell and his tuba.
Yes. You play taps on that thing?
For banning AR-15s, I think we need to ban the tuba too. That's just me. Maybe
also, I love the cover of that album. Like, do you need to tell people and his tuba? do you really need to do that?
Which well, in Wisconsin, which one's Bill and which one's the tuba, though? That's what we don't know.
Bell, if you title it Bill Bell, are people really going to look at that cover and say, "Oh, I didn't notice the tuba"?
It does seem to be a focal point, doesn't it? Let's end big. I love bringing these in, and this is the Library of America, which is wildly circable. And this is Walker Percy. And I didn't know a whole lot about Mr. Percy until I got this in the house, and I'm excited to leaf through it. What do you think of his work?
I think your viewers, your patrons will find it very enjoyable.
Excellent.
I assume that volume has the moviegoer.
It's the first one on the list, yes.
Right, and then there are others.
Last Gentleman and Love in the Ruins.
The moviegoer is typically viewed as Walker Percy's masterpiece. I wonder if your patrons will think that. Or if it was just the taste of a time
of the era. Yeah.
And
I was worried about that.
Will genuinely creep your viewers out, and it isn't intending to at all. It isn't intending to. The Last Gentleman is 1950s businessman dream scenario.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And
Mad Men type of thing.
It's just incredibly, it's gone. Thankfully, that dream scenario is gone, where women are fawn in the woods, and you can either put them in your scopes and shoot them, or you can get close enough to pet them and earn their trust. But go to the narrator, the main character in The Last Gentleman, and say women are completely viable individuals in their own right. It doesn't even exist in the universe of that book. Not at all. Not even in the universe of it.
So is Percy writing as a satire, or is it?
No. In the time. I think the strongest thing in the book is Love Among the Ruins. That's the strongest thing in there. I wonder what your readers will make of it, though. But what was that before the moviegoer? Is there incidental stuff in that book?
No, I believe it's just the novels this time around. There's no short fiction or essays or anything like that. Actually, excuse me. Related Writings is at the tail end. So we have July 4th.
Do you see them in the table of contents? What the related writings are? Are they?
It's something. They're all labeled with the month of July. Oh wait, no, that's part of Love in the Ruins. Excuse me. What is in the additional writing? It's very. They didn't make it easy, that's for sure. The moviegoer, Related Writings. Yeah, they don't break it down.
Okay, it could be interviews, could be a Paris Review interview, whatnot. But
yeah,
I wonder what your patrons will make of it. I gather.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Rounding out the volume are 3 short pieces by Percy, including his National Book Award acceptance speech for The Moviegoer, in which he reflects on his artistic aims as well as a newly researched chronology of Percy's life and career. So, but it's LOA, so I have to get it.
Well, I was going to ask about that. So you make a point of doing that.
I do. New ones. I don't go retroactively.
In previous episodes that they don't always do as well as you wish.
Yeah.
They don't go out as often as you would wish.
They don't. I am in the process right now. This is actually fun to talk about as a capper. I'm in the process of putting together a classic section, which is the most, what does that mean exactly? And that's a really interesting conversation. And I'm just starting to build it. And the dialogue around it, because a lot of the classics I'm throwing in there are duplicates. I already have them in the fiction section, but I have people come in and say, do you have a classic section? And I have to have a response to that. So I'm working on. So I think our Library of America books will be clustered together in the classic section, which might increase their chances because people like that kind of completist. The Barnes and Noble shopper in them can't not touch them.
Do you have anything to help them along? Like in the reference section, do you have one of those 1,000 books to read before you die? That sort of thing? Yes.
Yep, we do have some of those. Yeah. But this is it's an interesting. I've just begun. It's an interesting activity, and I'm not sure how it'll all shake out yet because I thought it'd be easy to just we'll throw some classics in there, call it a day. But no, I find myself wringing my hands over everyone, and asking for I'll catch the librarian and say, what would you, if I call this a classic, would you be put off? And that kind of stuff, really interesting. And what makes this a classic? Is it because everyone else likes it and says it's a classic, or is it actually a viable? These are all the conversations that go on with all the voices in my head as the day progresses. So there we go. But yeah, so there we are. That is a show. My gosh, we are. I think we made up for last week's absence. It was pretty good. And I'd like to leave you with the band. I think this one will be playing on some flight heading out. And there's no way out, by the way.
I would wait till 20,000 feet and then jump out the window.
That's what William Shatner was screaming about in Twilight. There's a pipe organist in the back of this plane. As always, we are brought to you almost every week at this time by the Friends of the Cedarbrook Public Library. And these people, they leave their homes and Steve, you have yes?
2 of the friends are big fans of Japanese zombie fiction. And you can tell because they sway.
They are. We love them the most. Those are our favorites, actually.
Well, they need it the
most. we could laud them and call them wonderful people, and they would say, "Really?" Anyway, so that's our show. Thank you to Steve for showing up. Because I didn't last week, and I will next week. And we'll be back.
Lori didn't show up either. Lori, no show.
Lori,
the hamburger guy didn't show up.
Well, you know who? Lori's busy today. Actually, she's over at the car show. She's Miss Unsafe Brakes. But you'll get her next week as long as her brakes hold up. Thank you, everybody. Next week we'll be back. Bye bye.